Good morning, class. Today we are going to learn a lesson about supply and demand. Supply and demand is really important for our economy and money, and how do we get money to survive. Economics is all around us, and today we're going to practice to find what is important to obtain the things that we need to live. So today we're going to start off by a read aloud called Anna's New Coat by Harriet Zephyr. In this book shows after a war, the perseverance of a mother to provide for her child. This book takes place in Europe during World War II. Anna and her mother barter for resources needed to make Anna a new coat. Through the bartering using supply and demand, Anna and her mother were able to get a new coat. There could be new vocabulary of the word barter, so I want you guys to understand what the word barter means. Barter means something that you give to somebody else to receive something. So I'm bartering. For instance, a friend of mine says, "Hey, I need a pencil." So you say, "Well, that's fine. I'll give you this pencil if you give me a piece of paper, and we can trade it." We're bartering. So your friend would get would get a pencil, you would get a piece of paper that you could use later. So you're benefiting because you had multiple pencils, and your friend is also benefiting because they had multiple pieces of paper and they needed a pencil. If we have any questions about the word barter, awesome. Okay, so we will go ahead and start this read aloud here. Let me share my screen. If you can see the story, give me a thumbs up. Awesome.
cloth. The weaver said, "What a pretty necklace. I will be happy to weave your yarn. Come back in turn." The weaver gave them a bow of thread and the necklace. And to see, a tailor is when Anna needs a new coat. Anna's mother told the tailor. "Porcelain teapot, if you will make a coat from this cloth." But that I'd be very happy. But first, I must take your measurements. He measured her arms from to the back of her knee. Then he said, "Come, I will have your coat." Then make cutting the cloth and stitching. When he buttons and sewed them in the window for everyone to see. When Anna and her mother returned to the tailor shop, Anna tried. She in front of the mirror. The coat was perfect. Anna's mother thanked him, and she gave him a teapot. Anna she went to look at her reflection in the window. When that Christmas will be, and we could have Anna said, and keep all. Yeah, and I just in a big hug. The, the king thing in her. The Christmas was delicious. Everyone agreed that this they had had in a long time. Anna visited the sheep. "Whoa, sheep, do you like my pretty new coat?" The sheep answered, "Bah."
All right. That was such a good story. And this story teaches us about supply and demand because Anna and her mother had to find things that they could trade, like the gold watch for the wool. So supply and demand is they wanted the wool, so they had to supply. The people had the wool, and because Anna wanted it for her coat, they had the supply of wool, and the demand was that Anna needed it for her coat, so she needed that to stay warm. So something that we are going to talk about now is I have a little something that's going to help you guys in remembering what supply and demand is. And I am going to read it to you guys once. And I'm going to display it so you guys can see it. I'm going to read it to you guys, and we're going to repeat it 2 times so that we can remember it. Going forward here. 1 second, so let's make sure that it's big enough for you guys to see here. And then let me share my screen. If we were in class, I could make an anchor chart for you guys to be able to display this, but I will send it to you in your packets so that you can use this at home. And here we have, so goods and services don't fall from the sky. The amount available for sale is called supply. And demand is how much of a service or good people want to buy. Now that is understood. So you guys read it along with me. Goods and services don't fall from the sky. The amount available for sale is called supply. And demand is how much of a service or good people want to buy. Now that is understood. And one more time, let's read it together. Goods and services don't fall from the sky. The amount available for sale is called supply. And demand is how much of a service or good people want to buy. Now that is understood. Good job, guys. So now we are going to follow up with a barter activity. So in this activity, the students are going to work in groups of 4 or 5, and I'm going to explain the activity to you because I don't have a group of students here, but they would be in groups. And if you have any students that are left over, they can be observers for the activity, or they can pair them up with a student 1 in the groups. So you would number them 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there's 5 haves and 5 wants. So I would suggest groups of 5, but you can do 4, just take off the last of the barter cards here. And if you do want to have observers, or you can have 2 number 1s and they can work together to maybe persuade they might have more luck getting what they want. So I'm going to share what these cards look like, but let me explain it for. So each student one gets a have card and then a want card, but make sure that they're mixed up. And then they don't go together because they don't want to be able to have what they want as well, and they wouldn't have to barter anything. So person 2 gets a have card and then a want. And they're labeled on here. So they can each from the first ones, because they don't pair up in how they're laid out here. So that you're going to explain that you have, they're going to barter with each other to get the things that they want. So then you would allow a few minutes for the bartering to take place. And at the end of 5 minutes, you'd have the group stop bartering. Let me go ahead and show you what these cards look like. 1 second. So you can see here in the bartering cards, you'd give student 1 the number 1 that they've been labeled. I have a chicken is what they have, and they want a cord or wood or a bag of oranges. And so you can see the second student says, I have a dozen eggs, but I want a chicken or oranges. The last one says, I have wool from sheep, and they want a bag of oranges or a bushel of corn. And this one is a have, and I have a cord of wood, and I want a dozen eggs or wool from a sheep. So you can see here, I have a cord of wood. So this person here wants a cord of wood, so they would give them a chicken for their cord of wood. And so this person now would have their chickens, they would have to switch cards, and they need to get wool. So they have a dozen eggs, and they would want, if they wanted a dozen eggs, they would have to try to give it to this person as a dozen eggs, but they only want chicken and oranges. So they would give them the wood, and they would have to find who wants wood. So they would give it to this person here who has a bushel of corn. So now this person has a bushel of corn, and they have to figure out who wants the bushel of corn. And it would be, I want a bag of oranges or a bushel of corn. Well, as you can see, nobody has a bag of oranges, but everybody wants them. So they would just have to figure it out through bartering systems of they keep the I want cards, and this is they have to trade throughout the have cards and to see if they can get what they want. So it's a pretty neat activity. Stop sharing that with you. And then at the end of the activity, you would have a group discussion. And some prompts for these discussions would be, did you get what you wanted in the bartering activity? Why or why not? How many people in the group got what they wanted from the bartering activity? And the students would raise their hands. And then, did you have to make more than one trade? Why or why not? So after this discussion, we would close out with an exit ticket. And so the exit ticket here would be this exit ticket here, and it has their name and date, and the directions are write or draw the definition or your interpretation of supply and demand. So they would turn this in here, and you would use this as a assessment piece of it to, and I would suggest you give them the option to draw the definition, because for your ELL learners that might not know, or students might be not able to find the words to describe it, but they can illustrate their meaning here. So you give them the option to kind of differentiate here what you'd want to see from them. And that would be and they would turn it at the end, and that would be the end of your lesson. Thank you.